Hey, it's July 31st. Brought to Orloff here. Thought I'd show you a few things I'm discovering as I dig through the vaults here. This is a great ad and a great publication. Get the shadow going. This is an ad for Jim Steranko's History of Comics. Stan Lee says it's a blockbuster. Only $1.98. Okay. How can I eliminate the shadow? I'm experimenting. I've done this before. Whatever I do, I can't eliminate the shadow. Oh, I have an idea. I'll get over here. There we go. No, that still doesn't work. Gosh darn it. There we go. No. Yeah, there we go. The most talked about comics artist of the year has written the most controversial book of the decade. Between its covers lies the most complete and compelling compilation of the life and times of the comic ever published. Steranko discloses the inside story of the comics from the golden age to the present, page after page packed with the facts, figures, failures, and favorites of the 40s and 50s and 60s. The definitive analysis of comic book history. That's kind of an unfortunate. The definitive analysis of comic book history. Kirby, Kubert, Wood, Williamson, Frazetta. All the greats are presented in hundreds of exciting reproductions. It's big. 80 fantastic pages, plus a mind-bending 11 by 17 full-color poster-size cover by Steranko, starring 50 all-time action heroes. It's bold, beginning with the dynamic pulps of the 30s. A galaxy of superheroes are traced through 16 profusely illustrated chapters that will make you a comic expert overnight. Super collector's item. Hurry send today. It really is spectacular. If you ever find that, a little bit bigger than a Treasury edition. There's 2 volumes of it. This is something I just dug up from the archives. This is a fanzine. This one's called the Madworld of Marvelton from October of 1967. An illustrated newsletter for Marvel Comics fans, Volume 1, Number 1. It's cool to see what fans were saying back in the actual early days. They have a personality analysis of the Beast. The Beast is one of comicdom's rarer personalities and an intellectual with a human personality. Let's see. Greetings to all fans, collectors, friends, and in general Marvel maniacs. You have just entered the realm of the mad world of Marveldom. As co-editors of MWM, we can say that we had a swinging time putting this publication together. We hope that you have just as wild a time reading it. Alright, so Greg Kiesel and Fran Shesterich. Let's see if we can find out where this was published. Editor's Jottings. First issue. After learning of such fanzines as Yancy Street Gazette and Superzine, I was further convinced that such a venture would be worthwhile. Okay. Musings on the Nightlife of Spider-Man. Oh, here we go. An amateur lithographed newsletter dedicated to Stan Lee and his Marvel Comics group. Published 7 times yearly. Okay. So it is published in Virginia, Minnesota. That's a little confusing. We've got a town that's named like a state. This page, I guess, is intentionally blank. Oh, it was put in at a later date. last minute notes. I think I'll put it like this instead. Let's see, why did they do this? After finishing layouts for MWM number 1, we were surprised to find that we did not have space enough in Greg's editorial slot to state all of our policies. Okay. More about the Beast, long article about the Beast, and then on the back cover, The Avengers Battle the Earthwrecker by Otto Binder. Or Binder. I used to pronounce it Binder, but I hear a lot of people pronouncing it Binder. Okay. They're reviewing current plotline in the Avengers. And here's a review of another fanzine, Yancy Street Gazette. This fanzine is a publication of the Yancy Street Gang, a fan group recognized by the Marvel Bullpen. It is mimeographed and thus far has 12 pages, although plans for a page increase in the near future. Okay. So they're telling in another magazine, Superzine. So those were the three main ones that were kind of working together. Now, with YouTube, people are kind of doing the same thing in a different way. This is the Forbish Gazette, number 1. It's a cover with a Fantastic Four and a Rogues Gallery. This guy, Owen Hutchinson. If you know anything about him, let me know. Inside looks a little bit different. It's actually mimeographed. And if you're a little bit older, you'll remember in the early days of school, the teachers would print all their worksheets and tests this way. And it was before photocopying. They would run them off on a mimeograph machine. And it had purple ink that smelled wonderful when it was fresh. It looks like with age it becomes very hard to read, and that's the case with a lot of. I'll go through this. It's kind of hard to handle with one hand. Here's an ad for another fanzine, Sanctum. 32 pages. But this is what it looked like, and this is someone's hobby hints. Here's a page about the Human Torch. Artist named R. Miller. So they have an interview with a Marvel. Oh, an interview with Stan Lee. And apparently Batman's ratings are on the skids. When was this published? I can't. If it's like that other one, I think I bought both of these at the same time. Ooh, that's gotta hurt. I think I bought these at the same time both of these at the same time. So I imagine it's from '67, and yeah, Batman's ratings were not doing that well. That's why they brought in Batgirl in the 3rd season. It still didn't work. Speaking of, well, I wanted to tell you, you probably know about this, but for years people looked down on these reprint titles. And later on in the 70s, they wouldn't print the story because they didn't have as many pages in a comic in the 70s. Sometimes they would cut out a page. But in the 60s, there was a title, Marvel Tales, and another one, Marvel's Collector's Items Classics, that later became Marvel's Greatest Comics, that reprinted the Fantastic Four. And then there was Fantasy Masterpieces that reprinted the Golden Age comics. But Marvel Tales, if you want to read these old comics, And I mean, you could buy an omnibus for $100. And some of the reprinted comics don't have the original colors. But the great thing about Marvel Tales and these reprint titles is you can get them very cheaply, and it's still a Silver Age comic. It still smells like a Silver Age comic. It still has the feel of one, with all the great ads and everything. But what you're getting is many hundreds, if not thousands, of dollars of comics in one issue, and you can read the early Ditko Spider-Man very affordably if you missed out on the chance to actually purchase them back at the time. So I've got duplicates of a lot of these issues apparently, but I was buying these up in the late 70s when I couldn't afford the originals, and I could get them at Lone Star Comics very cheaply, and I just pulled these aside because I hadn't bagged them yet. So each issue reprints an entire Spider-Man story, a whole Thor story from Journey into Mystery. You get an Ant-Man story, and you get a Human Torch story. And so this is my recommendation to you, to give you lots of entertainment while you're quarantined and not allowed to go out. Because even, you can go out, but wearing that darn mask is so claustrophobic and horrible, and just seeing other people wearing them, it's so depressing. It really is. Look at that. So, if you can't own the originals, I'll never be able to afford these originals. I just was born at the wrong time. Look at that. These great t-shirts. I've actually got a reproduction of that one that came out in the 90s. I think even the reproductions are valuable now. These were only printing comics that were only a few years old at the time. But to kids at the time, it was like they were a million years old, because in 1966, 67, where are you going to go to get collector's comics? There just weren't places to go unless you lived in a big city like LA or something, or like Billy Mooney, who played Will Robinson on Lost in Space. On Saturdays, his mom would take him to a place in Los Angeles called Cherokee Books, kind of a beatnik store, and I think upstairs it was all old comics going back to the Golden Age, and he was able to buy lots of them. He even has a song. Look for it on YouTube. Type in Cherokee Books, Billy Mooney, and he sings about the experience of being a little kid and going to Cherokee Books. He was a big comic collector. Okay, so I used to buy, this is me as a kid. I get this comic probably at the Army PX. It was in they used to sell for maybe 79 cents. You could get 3 comics. They were enclosed in a bag. And they said Whitman on it instead of saying DC, or usually they were Gold Key comics. But Marvel and DC were also included in some of these bags. Alright, so the comic book price guide back in the 70s said, these comics are almost worthless. They're reprints. So that says Whitman on it, it's not worth hardly anything. Now, surprisingly, I see they're actually worth more because they're considered variants. They're not reprints, actually. Now people know more and know that they were actually printed at the same time as the original comics. They just stopped the presses and slapped this on over the original art and then just kept printing. So the Whitman, they're called Whitman variants, are now considered I think this is a valuable issue from what I understand. But for years I was like so depressed by my comics that said Whitman on them. And now I know differently. It's weird how things change. Well, You know, summer's kind of a weird, melancholy time in some ways. Both of my parents passed away during the summer, and summer has always been a time because I just retired. I was a school teacher, and for many years I was single. And during the summer, I'd be at home. I wouldn't see that many people, and I'd just be, alone with my dog and cats. And it's kind of a lonely time. And what I've enjoyed doing for many years, this is going to sound weird, is watching this show on CBS called Big Brother. And that's kind of a guilty admission. You'll probably unsubscribe when you hear that I said that. But Big Brother is just fun for me. The first season of it, I watched it with my mother. Every episode, she loved it. And then the second season, she was in the hospital, and I'd go to the hospital, I'd watch it with her, but she passed away in the middle of the summer. And every year since then, I've watched it, and now I met my wife, and she got hooked on it, and she loves it, so I'm not that embarrassed, even though it is kind of horrible, I admit. But we watch it, and it's starting next week. They've delayed it because of all the plague going on. Well, so I'm excited about that. I know that's kind of lame. There's got to be something else interesting going on around here. I don't know. I mean, I'm making some progress on this room, actually. It looks horrible, but it's going to be coming together here pretty quickly. Trying to think if there's anything else I can show you that's of great interest. And I'm not thinking there is right at this moment. So, well, look at this little thing. Remember these March of Comics? They're little tiny comics, and they were given away at usually shoe stores and drugs, 5 and dimes maybe, and they put their imprint on it. But March of Comics, this is given away at Lazy Bones shoe store. And those old shoe stores back in the 50s and 60s, they thought it was really cool. They would put your feet in an x-ray machine and put the shoe on and x-ray your foot to show you how your foot fit in it. They weren't realizing how dangerous that really was to be x-raying kids all the time. So, let me see what I can do. I'm thinking of getting a new computer today. If you guys have some advice on a good type of computer, I might get an Apple and put it over here on this desk. There used to be a computer there, but it died, and I still have the monitor and the keyboard. So, I guess with that, remember we're all in this together.